So now for this panel discussion, we'll talk about AI editors and decision making, and with an international perspective. And so I'll let the speaker introduce themselves because it's better, but the moderator will be Bronwyn Jones. So please welcome them on stage.
Hello, everybody, and thank you very much for staying so late. We recognize that we are the last panel, and half of our job is keeping you awake and alert and interested, so I'm sure we're going to be doing that with great aplomb. We have three wonderful speakers here today. I'm going to be moderating this panel, and we'll be touching on questions around AI literacy, around integrating AI in the newsroom, navigating the risks, and ensuring accountability in those processes. I want to make sure this is an open conversation, so we're going to have a roving mic, and if you have a question while we're talking, please put your hand up and interject. We want to make this a conversation between you guys and us. So without further ado, I'll introduce myself, and then I'll just hand over to my panelists. My name's Bronwyn Jones. I work for the Responsible Innovation Centre, which is an independent research centre based in BBC Research and Development. I was a journalist for 10 years at the BBC before that, and I also work as an academic researcher of responsible AI in journalism at the University of Edinburgh on the Bridging Responsible AI Divides programme. I won't give you any more details about my background because it's not about me today, but it is about my three panelists, so I'm going to allow you to introduce yourself, and Jakub first.
Hi. You have to know that at least from the speaker's perspective, the sound takes 3 to 5 seconds before it comes back to us. So now I know what you said. Okay, my name is Jakub. I am based here in Warsaw. I'm a reporter and also visual artist. I specialize in use of artistic journalism. That's one of my hats. I also run a platform called Mixer, which supports journalists from Central and Eastern Europe. And this year, with the support from Google, we've also launched a special AI accelerator targeted at the Central Eastern European countries, and we have over 20 newsrooms participating in it. And also I run a special event place here in Warsaw called Outriders Club. It's a very techy multimedia gallery, cinema place where you can come and enjoy. So I encourage you to visit us, especially tomorrow maybe. And I'm very happy to be here and talk about AI. I actually teased our moderator last night that I'm going to be just silent for the whole panel and be like a performance, like the human element. So she's scared I'm going to do this, but we'll see how it goes. So back to you.
I'm so glad so far that's not the case, Jakub. We'll pass over to Sophie. Sophie, could you introduce yourself?
Have you got the clicker?
Ooh, do we have? Yes, I have the clicker up here. I'll grab it.
Is it on there? Yeah.
There you go.
Okay, hello. I'm Sophie Nicholson. I'm from AFP, the global news agency that's based in Paris but works around the world with local journalists in 151 countries. I worked for a decade on building up a digital investigation team, looking at verifying information online. And in the past year, I've been focusing on AI, the challenge of looking at AI-related disinformation, and also building up a team of AI ambassadors at AFP, where we have 1,700 journalists. So working with data journalists and tech journalists to create AI literacy content that we then, all of us around the world, use in conversations with journalists in the agency, usually for a day of training, looking at all different aspects of AI, from covering AI, reporting on AI, to tackling disinformation. So I was just going to show a couple of slides. I know we didn't want any slides, but just two.
Go for it.
This one just to show the challenge of news coverage now with AI-generated content, and the fact that for whatever reason, people very often are now creating very realistic-looking content around genuine news events. In this case, the earthquake in Afghanistan in August, and how challenging it is, and I think we've said this earlier, but how it's almost impossible now to use any kind of tool on its own to verify content online. In this case, it was actually identified in a reverse image search with Google's Synth ID tool, so there was a message with Google Unfortunately, that is obviously not always the case, and it's only going to be if the content is made by that same platform that that's even going to work, and all the data hasn't been scraped. The other image I wanted to show you was, I'm sorry, it's quite a disturbing image, but it was an image that a lot of people on Grok tried to use AI for fact-checking themselves. So they asked the question what this image was, and the reply given by Grok in an authoritative way was that it was an image of a girl in Yemen 7 years ago, when it actually was a recent picture from Gaza, and we knew it because we actually had a photographer who took the picture, so we had it in our archives. And it wasn't only Grok, it was also Copilot that propagated the false information. But so we do use AI, chatbots and LLMs to try and fact-check information, and it seems to many people that that's a good way to, you can use them to ask questions, but you do have to be careful. So, and always cross-check, as Jochen said earlier. That's it for my slides.
Thanks very much. So we'll pass over to Zakhar.
Yeah, I don't have slides. Hope you forgive me. My name is Zakhar Protsiuk. I'm a Chief Operating Officer at the Kyiv Independent. Kyiv Independent, it's a Ukrainian English language news startup, which we founded almost 4 years ago. At the Kyiv Independent, now I oversee a number of different teams, reader revenue, marketing, product, and in between those teams, we are tasked with making sure that AI is not our biggest problem, and AI is not really my biggest problem. Russia is our main problem, but that said, we sort of try to approach it with some strategies, which I think we'll discuss probably during this panel. Yeah, happy to be here.
Thank you very much. So that's all of us. I want to start with a short conversation about AI literacy. I think some of the panelists, we have a little difficulty hearing each other. Oddly, you'll hear us really well, but there's a bit of reverb here, so hopefully we can pick up on what each other's saying. But I want to pick up on the AI.
Make a lot of gestures.
Lots of gestures, yeah. The AI literacy question. So these are quite different organizations that you work for with different types of journalists. So I'm really interested in hearing a little bit about your journey with AI in each of those spaces, and then the importance of AI literacy for you and what it actually means and looks like on the ground. So if we go in reverse order, that'd be great.
So the question is,
just tell us a bit about your journey with AI. Yeah.
so how do we approach AI? Yeah.
Yes. And then also AI literacy,
Yeah. All right. So sort of the way we think about AI at the Kyiv Independent is, I think it's important to explain first that for us, the previous big media transformations that happened were actually a very good thing, not a bad thing. Kyiv Independent would not be possible as a publication if not for digital revolution and social media revolution. We are a news organization out of Kyiv that serves global audience. So we are read by probably 5-6 million people each month in 100+ countries, with a lot of people in the United States, UK, and so on. So if you would have to start our publication in the 90s, we would not have enough money or capital to build it. It would be impossible. With the same thing, social media played a huge role for our brand to grow very fast. We started a few months before Russia launched the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. Our Twitter, back in the days, used to be Twitter. Following grew from tens of thousands to over 2 million in a few weeks. So that's what I think about AI. I try to remember that previous transformations helped Kyiv Independent to exist, and now we have another one. So the way we approach it, I would say, it's a force that is happening, neither good or bad, right? It's so big that there is no way, we can complain, but it's going to transform everything we do anyway. So we try to approach it as an opportunity and try to break it down on what are the most useful cases for the Kyiv Independent for it to work. What works for us well is, first, we are an organization that creates journalism in English, but we have a lot of people who are not native English speakers. So actually, AI is really helpful for proofreading and for sort of getting up to speed on making sure that the journalism is presented in a forum, specifically a forum that is usual for our audiences who are comparing us with, New York Times, The Guardian, and so on. So that is like an obvious use case. We've been doing, the basic things like AI audio versions of our articles for many years already. Very useful. We had for 1 week, I remember it got broken, and we got so many angry letters from our readers that it's like, bring it back. So for us, it's definitely an opportunity. Right now, we are in the process of trying to codify it. We did a survey in our team, and we learned that already 92% of our staff already use AI either daily or weekly during their work. So we are like, all right, it's already here. You don't want to over-engineer it, but you want to have the framework for this. And actually, AI has been helpful for us in unusual ways. A funny story is that we recently hired a person through ChatGPT. Happened accidentally. We opened the position for a marketing manager at the Kyiv Independent, and then there was one person who was a Ukrainian, but she lived in Canada. She moved to Kyiv, and she started to look for a job in Kyiv. And she asked ChatGPT, where should I work? It should be an international sort of community, helping Ukraine, English language work. And the ChatGPT recommended Kyiv Independent. And then she applied, and we hired her, and she's great. So, unobvious ways. I hope that helps to give you sort of the approach that we have right now. There are a lot of risk, which I'm sure we will talk about. But right now we are at this phase where we are identifying very practical use cases. We don't use it for writing journalism right now, no. But right now we are trying to find opportunities.
That's really helpful. Thank you for that context. Can I ask you one extra question, which is, what does AI literacy mean for your journalists then, for the people, as Chief Operating Officer of the company? How do you ensure that they're ready, and what does it mean to be AI literate for your journalists?
What does it mean to be AI literate? I think it's important to understand the red lines where we don't use it. If you, for example, our journalists wrote pieces of the article and just generated by AI, that would be very bad if they didn't notify their editors, and we were not ready for that. I think everyone in our team understands that AI is just a compilation of other sources and could be influenced, and Russia is very effective at disinformation, and for them AI tools is just another new phase of how they can do it. And I'm sure we can talk about that later, but Russia is very active now at things that is called LLM grooming, where they are essentially trying to flood different AI models with so much fake content that models themselves start to spread some pieces of propaganda. Those things, they're just sort of basic things that our team needs to know, but we approach it with the basic journalistic standards we have, and they are so far helpful to not allow any of that stuff to get into our work.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. And Sophie, similar question. What's been the experience of such a large organization and international organization as AFP, and how have you been involved in that journey as well?
So for us, I think we realized from the outset that people were using chatbots and AI tools, and we've developed a few tools in-house. We've worked on tools that haven't come to fruition. We use them for translation, for transcriptions. We're using tools for automatic video shot lists, for example, things that people are finding very useful, and we're trying to release them at a time when they're functioning well enough that they're going to see them as something helpful and positive. But in terms of reaching people across the organization, and we have guidelines, but making sure they're aware of the guidelines and thinking about them critically when they're using them, we've realized, I've heard a few people today talk about conversations, but we're basically having conversations throughout the company, which is the training that we're carrying out with all the different journalists. And the ambassadors are in different regions, so they're local journalists in different regions who know local issues, local chatbots, languages, and the training, a lot of it is making sure that everyone gets hands-on and they're playing with chatbots, particularly because that's what we're talking about a lot of the time, Gen AI, and just knowing the limitations, showing them a lot of the disinformation, the challenges in trying to verify information, and making it really clear that you are ultimately responsible, but they know it because they're doing it during the training.
So can I just check, is this mandated training, or do people have to volunteer or be interested to get involved?
Well, so we launched it we got together and created it in May. We launched it in June, and we have waiting lists for it. We've trained 300 people now, and we've got 1,700 journalists. It's only editorial training. And now Up High have decided it will be compulsory for everyone. So we may end up at the end with some people who really don't want to come in. But at the moment, there's just an appetite for learning about how to work better with AI tools. And at the end of the training, most people come out and say, can we have more? Like, we want to keep up to date. Please help us.
That's really interesting. We have some similarities going on in a large organisation like the BBC. And some of this is about just facilitating conversations. I've noticed it's not necessarily the formal training or even the hands-on, but it's about people being able to have trusted conversations with trusted colleagues where they can raise ethical quandaries, issues, conversations. So do you find that that's sort of the most useful part of this conversation?
It definitely is. And before I started doing this, so I did some research. I was doing a project in researching in newsrooms around the world. And what a lot of people were saying to me in the beginning was just that people, you just need to get people over their fears, that are all different kinds of fears, that until you have a conversation about the actual operations of a tool and get them using tools, they can be sort of blown out of proportion in a way, I think. But it seems that people, it's definitely the reactions we're getting is that we want to talk more.
And Jakub, is that sort of a similar feeling amongst the journalists that you work with, the people you fund or that get involved with Outriders?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so there is one, I think, major problem with AI right now is that we are still at the very early stage of development of different tools. Also that just the phrase AI is just a huge package for many different things. Some people associate AI with ChatGPT, some with any tool which just adds AI label to it. And usually when we've had previous changes or revolutions, there was a change, and then we could see effects. Everybody was trying to adjust to the situation. Whereas we have a very interesting and fascinating situation because we have a big revolution happening, and within it we have smaller revolutions happening every 3 to 6 months. Basically, the moment Gemini drops version 3, or we had the situation last week when ChatGPT dropped Sora 2. So basically, it's very hard to predict what those tools will, in the end, allow us to do, besides the fact that they are going to be way more powerful than they are right now. And we are already seeing major shifts among many industries, not only journalism, but for us here, gathered as people who work in this, that's very important. So when I think about this, and I work with newsrooms through the accelerator or individually, I try to categorize this work into 3 pillars. And the first one is basically more philosophical, which concerns ethics of what you were saying, which concerns some kind of resilience of the organization, which kind of understand that we are fucked, we just don't know yet how fully. That's basically where we are right now in this. Whether you make videos right now, I mean, probably in a year you will be able to generate really powerful movies 10 times better than you can do right now, and yet right now you can do really great stuff and automate a lot of workflows and so on. So this process is very ongoing. It's going to be very stressful for teams. It's going to be very, I connect 2 words, culture and journalism, and they are both on the top 3 list of things which are going to be killed by AI. So lucky me, I'm going to sell alcohol in my club at the end of this AI revolution, basically. So that's the philosophical part, basically. How to prepare for it, how to treat your people, how to treat your audience. I like Kyiv Independent was one of the first organizations I know to use just AI article read by AI, and you immediately had transparency on it, that it's generated and so on. And that was very early on, over, I think, 1.5 years ago, you've introduced it. when we were only starting this. The second thing is strategic. So basically, for every newsroom, think, what can we do with those tools? You know, to which process of the organization to apply it? Is it research? Is it pre-production, production? Is it distribution? Is it content generation? Do we add new products? Do we kill products? You know, and how to track because you know what does Kyiv Independent will do? Introduce new language versions. That's gonna take them like seconds, basically, or for every other media organizations. Do you want to? If you are, I think a great. Biggest opportunities are in sport industry, you know, because you can generate a lot of content for small local teams, you know, something which you would not be able to do. But if someone is interested in a second league in Lvovsky Oblast, maybe you can actually automate content production for them, stuff like this. So it allows you to really pinpoint niche audiences, something what legacy publishers really sucked at doing for many years. And the third one is like operational, which is what tools do we use? Because we usually, the problem I have with AI right now also is that we are starting from the tool perspective, not from the big question, but like, oh, there is this new something. It allows us to do something with audio. Let's figure out what to do with it. There is so many tools right now, which are all incredible at this stage, and they are just only going to get even better at this stage. So having all of this, I'm gonna finish, don't worry. What I want to say, there is, as always, a different preparedness among small and medium publishers, which are, I think, much more better prepared for this to come because they are simply more agile anyhow. And I think they're still more value-driven, mission-driven. And then there are the legacy big publishers who are screwed. But not because of AI, it's because they lost the past decade. You know, when it comes to firing journalists, not producing quality content. And now they are like, oh, so we produce shitty news stories and they are going to be basically digested by all the generative AI tools and so on. And they are left with very little. Just imagine like a typical one of your most popular news websites in your respective country. How much of it do you think has quality journalism or stuff which will not be eaten by AI? So, to finish my thought, the big question is, what are journalists for? Like, if we automate everything with the tools and everything, why are we actually going to keep the newsroom? What's it going to produce? Are we going to send AI robot to produce frontline journalism? Or maybe we actually need humans for it and so on. So, but this particular field is something when specifically big publishers have done a lot not to have it within their media operations.
Okay, so that sounds like a call to go back to first principles and to really think about what you're doing, why you're doing it, why, if AI is necessary. And I think that's a really useful step back when there's such a intense push to deploy AI sort of everywhere that's possible. Can I just ask, do you think that there's a responsibility of those larger publishers, even if they, are diminishing in their influence maybe, to provide resources to other parts of the industry, like the training that's being developed, for example, in AFP?
For their own teams?
No, for others across the industry, for freelancers, for smaller organizations that struggle with their own resources. Is there a responsibility on those bigger players, and particularly, maybe those who take funding from government or from license fees, or, is there a responsibility there, do you think?
It's usually very hard to engage them. It's a totally different community. If you go to here at News Impact Summit, we are more hipsters. But if you go to a proper not more big publishers conference, it's a totally different language. And different style of clothing also. And as such, different kind of conversations. I don't know if it's their responsibility. They got used to the fact that they are in crisis for a long time, even though they actually generate big profits. The problem is the creativity and the willingness to actually change. And it's a big risk for them and a big opportunity for audiences is that the AI is just going to push them to the stage that they will have no other option but to actually change and reflect on what they were doing. It's simply because of the pace of the changes generating by AI. It's a totally different industry in different countries, also kind of regulated. They are currently trying to figure out whether they are blocking AI or whether they're trying to make deals and get money. And this is where they are, and openly they criticize big tech. At the same time, they're trying to make deals with big tech, just to get money for it. So that's where we are.
It's a complicated situation. And in an international organization that goes across those different jurisdictions and, has different levels of understanding in different places, different levels of advancement of technology, even in, their languages, that kind of thing. What are the difficulties there in not just teaching or providing literacy about AI, but integrating AI into the workflows?
You mean integrating within our workflows for our clients, or
internationally for?
Yeah, I mean, for us, because we're a news agency, so we're, on the one hand, our clients are in crisis, because the media is in crisis in a lot of countries. On the other hand, we have new clients from new media. We do have some from, the challenge is always that we have our clients are so diverse that adapting to everyone is going to be very, very hard. And we're working now, specifically related to AI, we're really working to work with as many clients as we can to find out what their needs are, what they're doing, because it's shifting the way we provide content to clients. And now some of that content, for example, translating the content, they do it themselves. And it's just anticipating where we think the value is and hoping that we'll still maintain the funding to be able to provide that value, which is having people on the ground, having local people on the ground in many, many different countries who are trained to a certain standard and who our digital verification team is basically verifying, sourcing information, and hoping that there's still a market for that, that people see a value in that and can pay for it.
And I'm just sort of thinking about the implications for a small organization like yours that faces lots of different risks and challenges.
You're not that small. You have 50 people.
That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
I think of ourselves as a medium.
Smaller than AFP was
medium small. Medium.
My question is about the differences there against an international, multilingual news agency.
So,
a different organization, basically. How do you see that context?
So we are a team of 80 people. I don't know how do you perceive it in media. Is it small or medium or large? I see it as medium. I think for us, we are sort of in this spot where we are not big enough to make a direct deal with OpenAI, but we have resources to think about AI in some structured form. Because there are so many news organizations that are unfortunately so understaffed, under-scrapped, that for them AI is just coming for them and they don't really have any moment to think about how do they approach it, how do they change their strategy. I see ourselves somewhere in the middle. I'm quite optimistic for Kyiv independence specifically. Let me explain to you why. And I'm quite pessimistic about the informational ecosystem. Those are two different things. Why am I optimistic about the Kyiv independence? I think it allows us to be a bit more prominent with what we do well, which is this exclusive on-the-ground journalism that we do. Our main selling proposition at the Kyiv independent is that there are people around the world who are interested in what's happening in Ukraine and Eastern Europe. A lot of media cover it, but we can do it better and we can do more of it because we are based in Ukraine, we are based in Kyiv. Our editorial staff, our newsroom is a bit over 40 people. We can just do better journalism and more niche journalism, more nuanced journalism. We can do better frontline coverage. And right now, a lot of Western media are not able to do the same frontline coverage as they did because the drones are so deadly and so dangerous that many just don't take the risk. We do take the bigger risk, I would say, at the Kyiv Independent, because for us that's so critical that we keep doing that frontline coverage. I don't see AI taking over frontline news and frontline reporting, right? That's not happening. I don't see AI taking over investigations. I don't see AI taking over that sort of community building and scoops reporting that we do as well, right? So for me, I think the biggest challenge is distribution and discoverability of the Kyiv Independent. But to be honest, that has been a challenge before, and it's a challenge now. It's just a different challenge now. Our search traffic is getting to be a bit more wobbly over the last months, but at the same time, we have things like hiring people through ChatGPT and getting some brand awareness for those AI platforms, right? So I think for me, the biggest challenge, okay, how do we adapt the distribution side? And how do we use maybe the saved resources by applying AI for productivity? And a lot of like sort of these pockets in the company where those are very straightforward cases. Text to audio, dubbing. Right now we are doing, like, because we are doing a lot of interviews where one, let's say, journalist speaks in English, the speaker speaks in Ukrainian. With dubbing, it's really good. You can actually do it. You can actually consume now multi-language, like interviews with different languages in English, and it feels all right. It doesn't feel wrong. So we use that. Those are straightforward cases we use, but then we are solving the distribution challenge. How do we solve it? Our bet is on direct relationship with readers. We have a membership. This is our main business model. We have a bit over 22,000 paying members right now. We believe that as long as we keep building those direct relationships, we should be all right. But then how do we get them in? I think that is the thing that has been changing before, now it's changing again. I cannot say that, you know, losing Google Discover for us, let's say, which I'm sure is probably a source of traffic for many of your publications, is gonna kill us. We'll have to adapt to it. But then how do we adapt to those new platforms so that they see, when people ask news about Ukraine, they see Kyiv Independent on the first place in ChatGPT, let's say, right? So for me, that's the distribution challenge at the moment. But it's also an opportunity to have the journalism being at the center. And that's, I'm hopeful for.
Jakub, you wanted to come in there?
Yeah, I wanted to add up to what Zakhar was saying. Basically, to build on this, I do agree that especially small and medium media organizations are better positioned right now because they have something unique, what you just said, like investigative reporting, producing high-quality multimedia, something what the big publishers don't have. So one of the things I'm also trying to advocate, because big publishers are right now trying to figure out what to introduce in order to keep the audience. And it's not going to be fully automated. It's going to be more like something which will actually keep the people coming back to the brand, because a lot of the search-driven traffic is just vaporizing very quickly. And I'm advocating that, for example, they can buy small media organizations, you know. The thing is that especially I call it the hipster journalism movement, which I proudly represent, you know, so people who spend a lot of donor money trying to find a business model. Most of us didn't succeed, but we are very good at producing quality journalism. It's very hard to do when you have 10 people to figure out how to produce journalism, business model, and everything at the same time. So for many years, and that's a good thing, donors were actually financing missing things in journalism, which the big publishers were abandoning. So right now we are in a moment where this can actually be a match. For example.
Okay, yeah, that's really helpful, thank you. I'm going to just make sure that we turn to a couple of the other issues that were on the agenda, which include the risks in this new world. So you've mentioned there the risk of, you know, traffic falling away, discoverability, those kinds of things. But I'm interested in whether you pay attention to maybe the risks in vetting systems that you bring into the newsroom, the risks that come with disrupting workflows and chains of accountability that you've built up over many years. And I wonder if you could speak to that a bit. How has AI changed, you know, your questions of risk and accountability? Maybe if I could go to Sophie first and background.
So I would say the risks are changing, like the risks before perhaps of, I mean, the fact that we have to verify things, it's a different kind of verification. If it's coming from, we still have to verify information. What we don't want is to get to a point where we are doing a very boring kind of verification and the machine is writing something. At the moment, our guidelines are that we don't use AI-generated content in text or video or photo or anything on our newswire. But yeah, as it gets better and better, maybe we'll be asking questions about that. And I suppose the risk in that case is of the profession becoming something else that's not very attractive to people who are currently working in the profession. That may be one thing. I mean, the fact that we have a big network is extremely helpful in verifying content, because there's often similar things that misinformation that's appearing in different countries, and having people on the ground who can check it quickly is very helpful. We have been extremely cautious in introducing tools. I mean, as many organizations, we've worked on building tools that have not come out for general use because they just were not reliable enough. And I think actually doing that quite slowly is not necessarily a bad thing. And yeah, I think really taking our time and thinking about what tools we're going to introduce if in that respect is extremely important.
Do you use DeepSeek?
Do I personally use DeepSeek, or? I mean, if we have recommended tools. We don't say you can't use any tool in your research, but we would say with DeepSeek, if you want to use it, it would be better to offload it somewhere and use it if you're actually going to play around with it. But yeah.
I just wanted to, provoke the Chinese question, Chinese angle of it, because many publishers don't use any Chinese-driven AI tools. So
I think it's good to keep every tool to be
American,
to test all tools, and also to test them all for bias. In the training that we do, we make people just ask the same question to different platforms to see, from.
That's something I have seen a couple media outlets who have internal policies, and they just say no Chinese tools at all. So. I mean, that's their choice, but it kind of relates to, I think, your question, which is like, what kind of decision make, and we know more and more that AI tools actually have nationality these days. So.
Yeah, and I would say what we do more is say test them out and tell us what you see when you use it, but obviously don't use it in your work. Yeah.
And sometimes this can be difficult testing out. Not in a sandbox environment, having to do things live and in the moment can be a challenge. Like, do you have that kind of R&D type space or sandbox space to ensure that you're not, disrupting live systems, those kinds of?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we have people who work in R&D who are working with a sandbox environment. But as I said in the beginning, I think what we realized from the beginning is you can't completely believe in a giant organization that you have guidelines to do a certain thing and people are not going to do it. So we just try and make it very clear when we're having conversations with people that you are responsible for what you're doing. And also, if you really want to test things, test them on private, not personal private information, but on things that are not related to your work. If you want to see how they work, test it on something. It's a good idea to test them, but.
And in Kyiv Independent.
I don't know. I just got very interested in your discussion. I forgot that I'm also speaker here. So, I mean, my take on this is I think as AI platforms are going to be more used as distributors of news, we'll go through the same road that as we've done with social media. Different governments will start to bend them and start promoting their own national models, Chinese one, Turkish one, I don't know, Iranian one, and then we'll go full circle. So for me, I think the role of news publications here is gonna. I'm a bit more hopeful, I guess, on that regard. Is that the bigger, more established brands the trust will stay sort of their main asset. My main concern here is the cheapness of this information for actors who want to use it for propaganda and so on. And my main concern, obviously, is Russia. For them, they've been good at this before. Now they just can do it at a much, much bigger scale. And I think we have a bit of a vaccine in, like, I don't know, if you're in Poland, you know your basic truths, right? Like, but if you are somewhere in, I don't know, Burkina Faso, you might not really care that much. And for them, like, if they've built like 50 websites that are more or less like look okay, but then have decent share of Russian propaganda there, you might as well believe it, right? Like, so it's so easy now to set up a whole fake domain with the whole, like, looks like a full-on publication, and do it with, like, I don't know, hundreds of dollars, maybe. Like, I don't have the math on it, but I've been having a conversation with one very good search optimization expert. He's Ukrainian, but he's based in Spain, and he researches this topic, and it's so cheap now to influence sort of search optimization through AI in different languages, because and Russia is very active on this, right? So for me, that's probably the biggest concern. The advantage that I see in this, while for sort of publications like Kyiv Independent, is while we will suffer as a society, the demand for our stuff will probably grow. That's sort of my thinking. It will not be immediate. It will take some time. It will be worse for all of us, because a lot of people will still sort of not trust independent media and so on. But I think we will get to a point that will be so low that people will look for solutions, and the solution will be factual journalism.
I'm wondering if the rest of the panel feel the same optimism about their own use within journalism professionally, and pessimistic about the destabilization of the information ecosystem. Is that how you see the dynamic?
Well, if 20 years in the industry taught me something, is that first, the big publishers usually make wrong decisions. Second, is that the misinformation creators are very fast to adapt, way faster than we are. So that's on the pessimistic side. So for the big publishers, it's easy. Just for once, do things opposite than you would want to do. You know, if you don't want to like spend too much money on consultancy and so on, just go once this way. I cannot tell you where I am, because I don't think we have seen enough when it comes to what all the AI tools will be able to create in the next year or two or something. Basically, what we see is that right now, if you have $100 per month, you can become a very powerful creator, even if you are very stupid. So that is, in a way, another step in democratization of this process of being able to, you know, achieve things in a way. So we had social media, which were more about distribution, whereas right now AI is all about content creation. Whether we want to do audio, whether we want to do video, generate text, you know, screenplays, and so on and so on. So that's a very powerful thing. And right now we're in a stage where we all as individuals are figuring out how we want to use it. You know, whether it's just scanning our fridge to tell us what we can cook from this one thing we have inside, to something more powerful and adopting this into our current daily life. We have Wikipedia available for many years, and it's not like humanity became more intelligent. So I am a little bit wary here, and maybe this is like more philosophical bullshit answer, but it's going to be very curious basically to observe in general. The bigger problem about the information sector is that we have a lot of people who are currently providing information to the society and are not thinking of themselves as journalists or reporters, or the podcasters, YouTubers, and so on. That's another total branch, you know, which is out there, and we basically it's going only to grow when it comes to reach, impact, and that is actually reshaping the public discourse very much more than media are. Media are basically responsible, you know, for less than 50% of the information in majority of the society these days. So we really screwed up. It's like, you know, that's basically, and whether we can regain it, I would hope so, and I see a lot of possibilities, but at the end of the day, it's about convincing, I would say, especially big publishers, what to do with the time they are saving because of AI tools, how they want to reuse the regained time of work of their teams, where to redevote it, That I see a great potential to tell different audiences and societies in the end that there is a value in journalism.
And there may be a split there, journalists wanting to use that time for shoe leather, investigative work, and potentially managers and others wanting to take those savings as financial gain or profit, those kinds of. So there is a bit of a tension going on, we can see. But Sophie, how do you see this dynamic? Are you in agreement with the?
Well, in terms of optimism, I have a lot of pessimism because I've been working around disinformation online and just seeing the scale and possibilities in different countries. There's plenty of pessimism. But in terms of creator journalism, that does also give me some optimism in the same way that I can see there's an appetite for factual information. I mean, quite a lot of the creators, the young creators that I've been aware of, have been producing news-like content, using content from mainstream media organizations. And in terms of reactions and the ways of interacting with social media, the report that Richard Fletcher showed this morning about younger people are clicking on links. I mean, I think that the problem with chatbots is that they can give this impression of credibility, and people don't read links. They just think, oh, this information must be credible because there's a source. Now you can often see the source and there's a link without actually clicking on the link and seeing what's behind it. But I don't know how to put the two together, but I think there is an appetite in many countries that I see for information that is factual and verified, and an interest in it. So. Yeah.
Okay, I'm just aware of time, and I want to make sure, firstly, that you guys get a chance to ask each other any questions that you have. So think on that for one moment. Yeah, are you interested in anything that they're doing in different organizations?
Can you actually hear me?
And then I'm going to throw it out to the floor, and we're going to get some questions in a moment. So I'll just see if there's any burning question on the panel.
I only just want to ask Zakhar, can he hear me? Because
I've heard like 70% of what you guys said, but I agreed with all 70.
So that's a no on this panel. So I'm going to.
Maybe we go for audience and.
Does somebody just hear? Thank you.
Thank you for a good discussion. My name is Nikolai, and I actually took part in this AI lab of Jakub. Okay. You mentioned AI lab. So the question is following. Sophie mentioned that they trained like several hundreds of people recently. Then Jakub mentioned that the revolution happening very fast. Every 6 months or last week we had a Sora. And Zakhar mentioned that they are overworked, if I'm correct. That
we are overworked? Yes.
Overwhelmed, overworked.
Both.
So my question to all of you, how you can ensure that editorial teams up-to-date with AI tools, because teams have no time to educate. If you train 700 people or 1,000 people months ago, you already needed to retrain it because of the revolution, and then too many revolutions happening at the same time because you have different tools. How you can ensure? Thank you.
Well, I would say introduce basic guidelines. Don't make it over strict at this stage. So don't throw important data sets of investigations into new tools, stuff like this, and then allow people just to go crazy. Because it's impossible with all the new tools coming up to adjust to this, and be aware that you will make mistakes. The bigger organization you have, someone will make mistakes or just do something accidentally, and this has to be calculated in. But just a set of a decalogue of some principles, and if you want to stay competitive on the market, just encourage people to experiment. And you will never achieve that if they have 150 pages of can I actually do this? Just very hard nose on certain things. The rest up to them, because this allows creativity.
No, I agree. I'm not sure I heard the question 100% correctly, but sort of, if that's the question of how do you prioritize and make sure you give the right space for journalists to work on this, I think, journalists are smart people who are looking for facts using different means. And they are accountable by putting their name on a story, usually. And the brand is also putting their name. That's the difference between journalism and anonymous sort of Telegram channels, right? So as long as we are adhering to those facts, I think AI is just an instrument, right? If you are a data journalist, amazing. You can use it for so many things now and like do your work so much faster. If you are, I don't know, you can visualize your work faster. Like it's, I think as long as you have the overarching framework working, whatever inside, I agree, over-regulating it is probably a bad idea.
I would just add that the training, I agree, the challenge is you train people 1 week, the next week the training has changed. But the fundamentals remain the same. There are aspects, all kinds of aspects around AI that remain the same. And what we do, and what I would come back to again and again, is having conversations, like developing a bigger network of people that you can have conversations with within the organization to ask questions, make suggestions, point out things that you've seen, because quite often, obviously, it's not top-down, it's different people discover different things, and the more that you can have a network of people who are going to come back and share with you, and also that they know, I mean, we try and, whenever there's a big update or something like Sora that upends everything, we'll just communicate in a very short way, showing why we see it as a significant development, so people are aware of it, and just, yeah, keep talking.
I would really quickly just add to that there is an interesting gap from principles to practices that's been well researched and well discussed more broadly, and it's not solved and probably isn't in itself solvable simply by giving principles. Doesn't mean that they can be enacted safely and effectively time after time as the environment and the technologies change. Like you said, mistakes are going to be made. I do think that I've noticed legacy organizations take a slightly more top-down vetting approach where they want to know, the security of every tool that they bring into the newsroom. They can't control everything, and there's shadow AI use going on by journalists, in every organization. But I think there is that element of wanting to be able to, justify to the public and to others that if anything went wrong, they took every step they could to ensure that those tools were appropriate for use. I don't know as many, ways that principles to practices situations playing out in less well-resourced organizations or with freelancers, and because it's a big responsibility to upskill yourself constantly as a freelancer with every change, every technology, all the implications for where that data gets stored, transferred, all of those things. So I think it's a challenge that is not yet solved. But thank you for that question. It's a great question. I believe there's another question just behind.
Hi, I'm Mikhail from Thomson Foundation. Thank you very much for the fascinating discussion. I have a question to all the panelists. I think journalism largely boils down to asking the right questions of why, where, when, what happened to the right people at the right moment in time. So do you see any way how the generative AI revolution modifies any part of the equation? The questions which are being asked, the people they are being addressed to, and the time at which they are being asked.
The who?
I think I've heard the question. I'm taking it. So the question was like, how do you use AI for adapting questions, selecting people who you talk to, and the time, right? Like the 3 blocks. Yeah, modify. Yeah, I got it. So I think it could be a big helper, right? Like if you train the model the right way to, I don't know, if you're talking to a speaker and then it can go through 50 interviews he did before, tell you all the questions other people asked him, it's much easier for you as a journalist to identify things that they didn't ask, right? So I think for the preparation work, could be a big help. I have a friend who works as an interviewer in Ukraine, and she's doing this like 3-hour-long sort of Lex Friedman style interviews, and the AI is very helpful for her preparation, because it's in order to prepare for the good interview, in-depth interview, you need to listen to so much stuff, right? So it's just a way to get a better understanding of what was not asked, right? I think that could be an area of help. I mean, in terms of selecting people, I'm not sure, right, all the time. I think that sense of time and who you should talk to probably still comes from just your background knowledge and your professional focus as a journalist. AI could be probably a help in terms of the research, but I think but honestly, like, the risks here with AI are more or less similar as with just open source research. You do still bear the responsibility to whatever goes from your name, from your publication. You take the responsibility for that facts that you put there, right? And then AI could help you there or harm you, just like any other source. That's how I see it.
I think I understand the question. I mean, in terms of deeper research in preparing for questions, I can see it as being very positive. I don't know if your question was also about the fact that maybe people will just be asking questions to chatbots and will no longer be going to journalism for anything.
It's a tricky game. It's a tricky game.
Not only from the newsroom's perspective, but also from the reader's perspective, the AI revolution, does it modify the elements of pure journalism, like the questions which the journalists ask so that their content is more appealing to the journalists, to the readers, sorry, or the people they are addressing these questions to? Like, is AI influencing the way journalism works, in a way?
So I think there are different examples in different places, like the way some organizations are interacting with audiences and the way some audiences are interacting with chatbots, and the data that can be got about what questions they're asking, what they're interested in, you know, what they're probing and why, much as the first sort of revolution in search gave insights into what information people felt they needed or wanted. I do think that there are some shifts going on in the sort of analytics with the data that can be got, which is actually very minimal, because this is a new layer of mediation between organizations and their audiences in many ways. But there are actually other uses of AI, some classical AI. We haven't really made a lot of distinction in this conversation between like generative AI and more recent developments and predictive classificatory forms of AI. So organizations that are looking to work with the polis more broadly, so often in public spaces and democratic spaces where they're looking for ways to have a more interactive conversation and understand the needs of populations, those kinds of tools which involve AI, they're not purely all about AI, but involve AI, can actually be very good tools for interaction, community building, and understanding those audiences. So I do think there are some applications that can then feed into that loop of what questions are we asking and why, how are we answering questions for our communities that matter to them. But that very much is dependent on those organizations having that purpose in mind and wanting to do that.
Yeah, there is one reader that changed their consumption behaviors, my mom. She started to read more of the Kyiv Independent recently, because now that she's learned that she can ask ChatGPT to summarize news from Kyiv Independent to her, and she is doing it, and now she is actually reading AI way more. That's an interesting example. I think there are many other examples of how people will introduce Gen AI models into their lives, whether it's to ask whether it's true or not good for us, right? Like whether it's summarization of news, whether it's recommendation of sources, it will come, definitely. If they trust those models, it will somehow affect their behavior with journalism, in my opinion. For better or worse.
Now, what I want to say maybe is just like, this is maybe my personal forward thinking, but I do believe that in 5 years, a website is going to be a memory. And that the news behaviors are going to be completely redefined, because first of all, we are finally going to we already have a proper audio assistance. Not like, hey Google, can you make the light red, but you can actually talk to Gemini Live properly, you know, while driving, and it basically, this is a sci-fi experience, you know. I'm planning research while driving, you know, or getting really sophisticated advice. And as a consumer, I feel very spoiled. And we already are seeing that whatever predictions publishers had when it comes to losing the traffic from search, from SEO, it's happening much faster, which is basically telling us one thing. As consumers, we love AI tools. We are getting better answers, faster, more sophisticated, and so on and so on. Some are still doing both, Google search and different GPTs, but that's not going to last long. It's mostly. The second thing is interface. As I would pay close attention to glasses. I do think that, you know, the Google Glass was always a joke for 20 years, but it's back. But if you look at the Meta glasses, it's very. I mean, Meta has the worst AI I mean, in my opinion, of all of them, but they do have the best interface, which is the glasses, which is the microphone, camera, and display. Easily, non-intrusive, with your hands free. And if we look into sci-fi literature, we are basically seeing that this is a go-to interface to interact with extended reality, which is basically, I think this is how it's going to end, that AI is going to extend the reality for us and become like a super powerful assistant, because in a couple of years, it will have so much data on us, it will better understand us than we do, you know. And just the first remark is ChatGPT Pulse. It was introduced 2 weeks ago. It's like a time's up. Yes, we know. We also want the free drinks, you know. So just to finish it off, ChatGPT Pulse is like Google Alert, but it's like the modern Google Alert, you know, which is like allows you to. It does the research for you all the time. If you are interested in whatever, let's say, journalism trends, ChatGPT Pulse is going to give you regular updates. It's kind of like a better way of being a newspaper. You can create many pulses. Each of them is your niche media publication, and you get then very sophisticated updates from it. Thank you.
So I'm just going to put a full stop on this conversation, which everybody's been so interested in that they've stayed, even though the drinks are being brought out over there. So thank you very much, guys. On a final note, I'd like to say maybe as well as looking at the sci-fi future, looking historically, we can see that some people still read newspapers. Some people still listen to FM audio. You know, like this is about a fragmentation and a development of, you know, a wider ecosystem of. It's not necessarily going to be this great replacement, I think. So. Thank you very much for your questions. Thank you very much for your time. And we'll close the panel. And Juliette, would you like to tell people what's next?